All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining me here at KM Carnivore. Today, I have a very special guest, author Jenny Mitich. Um, Met her down at the meetup with Carrie and Healing Humanity last month. We sat next to each other, got to know each other here, and I know she's a very busy woman. Uh, Mom of two crazy boys, along with being an author and traveling and speaking at the COSI conference and stuff like that. So it's an honor and a pleasure to have her on my channel. Um, Jenny, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This is gonna be a blast.
Yeah, thanks. So what was your biggest why, and why did you decide to start this crazy carnivore thing?
Well, my husband actually was the one that got me on carnivore. He had found Dr. Ken Berry's channel, and my husband Goran had lost 130 pounds using keto and water fasting before we met. But then he had kind of stalled out. So he wanted to take it to the next level. So he found Ken Berry on YouTube and was like, oh, hey, I really want to try the carnivore diet. And I was just like, you're insane. How can you get enough vitamins and minerals from just meat? That was my number one concern. And then, of course, the standard, just how could that be healthy? Blah, 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 blah. So I was like, okay, no, but I continued to watch Mama. Oh God, they're three, so they've been escaping from their cribs. They
Ah,
should
yeah.
be sleeping in normal beds, but this is why we keep them in. Um, so
Hey,
sorry.
that's okay. Mine are 20 and 17, so I don't know which is worse. So,
Gosh, I prefer teenagers,
yeah.
honestly. I really do. I worked with teenagers, 6th through 12th graders at a church. I was a youth director, and we had a blast. Always loved teenagers. Little kids freak me out. They're a lot. But yeah, so that's where that started. But I continued watching videos with him. And over the next 6 months, they kind of just absorbed into my brain a bit. And during that period of time, I was attempting to lose my, postpartum weight. I'd gained 70 pounds pregnant with twins, and I'd lost about 20, but I was still really overweight and having a hard time losing weight. I was doing like the Noom diet, the Noom app. It's just the standard, 1,200 calories, exercise a bunch, eat a bunch of fruits and vegetables and lean meats, very low fat. So that's what I was doing, and it wasn't working very well. So finally, cut to December 2022, and I was like, you know what, honey? I think I'm gonna try carnivore for a month. I had been wearing a continuous glucose monitor for about 3.5 months at that point, and I was really curious to see what would happen to my glucose levels going on a carnivore diet. So I kind of treated it like an experiment. I do a lot of data stuff on my channel now, but this was kind of the first experiment, N of one experiment. And I actually started carnivore before my husband, believe it or not.
Oh,
He was the
funny.
one. Yeah, I know. It's so funny. He was the one that wanted to do it, and I started first. But the logic was, if we're both going to have keto flu, why don't we stagger our start times? So I started on December 27th, and he started on January 8th, I believe. Um, but it didn't even matter because my my keto flu was terrible, and it ended up lasting 4 to 6 weeks. I now know that a lot of that was oxalate dumping after the initial 2 week period, but I didn't know
Okay.
that then. So it didn't even matter that we staggered our start times because I was just sick as a
You
dog
just
for,
kept going.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. But we kept going. So yeah, that's kind of how I got started. And my why, you mentioned that. I have a couple. I mean, I'm an older mom. I turn 41 tomorrow, actually.
Oh,
So
well, happy birthday.
thank you so much. So I have 3-year-old twin toddlers, as we saw earlier, and I want to be around, and I want to be healthy and active and able to like get up and down off the floor and run around with them because they're psychopaths. I have to chase them a lot.
Oh, yeah, there are three.
Oh my God, they're exactly what they're supposed to be at 3.
Yeah.
And I also really want to age gracefully. My grandmother on my father's side, she's 96 and she's still going strong, starting to lose it a little bit mentally, but physically very strong. She played tennis until she was 91.
Oh my goodness.
I'd really like to kind of be like her as far as longevity goes. And then the final why is mental health stuff. So I had been diagnosed with depression and anxiety at like 13, and I self-medicated with drugs and alcohol for a very long time. And on carnivore, I have not had any anxiety attacks, no depression whatsoever. It's just kind of like I'm operating at a much higher optimal baseline. So that's another big why for me.
Yeah, and that's something that doesn't get talked about a lot. But there's Dr. Chris Palmer and then the Metabolic Mind channel, where they talk a lot about the mental health side of it, um, which I find truly fascinating. And I love the work that they're doing there.
Same.
So besides the keto flu for 6 weeks, what were like the biggest challenges for you in the beginning?
It's a really good question. The keto flu was really bad for me because I had a lot of fatigue. Fatigue and diarrhea were my two main symptoms. So that was tough. I think kind of just getting used to eating this way. Coming from, I ate a lot of fruits and vegetables before I started. I was not eating a bunch of processed foods like a lot of people do when they're starting carnivore. I was eating a lot of carbohydrates in the form of fruits and vegetables, but I thought I was eating healthy. So that transition was interesting. I mean, I do enjoy vegetables. I'm kind of a weirdo. I like a salad. I like asparagus. I like that Brussels sprouts or whatever. So that was a bit of a transition. Cooking steak. My husband always did the grilling, and I had to learn how to cook a steak because I wasn't just going to wait when I wanted a steak, you know. So I learned how to
Right.
do that. That was a learning curve for sure. I definitely ruined a lot of good steaks. Sad.
Well, learning curve, right?
Yeah. And the only way to get better at it is to practice. So
Yeah.
that was a concern. And then I guess the other one was just kind of like dealing with social situations. So his family is really good in that they always pretty much have like keto meals. They're Serbian American, so they have a ton of grilled meats always. Very meat heavy cuisine, Serbian culture. So that was that, but like going out with friends or different family members or things like that, kind of making that adjustment. You always get questions like, "Wait, so you eat only vegetables?" Or the people are very confused at first when you say, I only eat meat. I don't eat any vegetables. They're just like mind blown.
Yeah.
But that was a concern in the beginning, not really anymore because I've been carnivore for over 2 years now, so everyone knows, you know.
hmm so like is a good segue because my next question was, how do you handle friends, family, and coworkers that think you're crazy?
Yeah.
Because usually all of us have to deal with those people in our lives.
Yeah.
And I know I certainly did, and they still think I'm crazy, but I'm curious to see like how you handled that.
Yeah, so like I said, Goran's family was really easy with that. Sometimes they'll be like, "Wait, can you eat that? Can you do that?" And we'll have to kind of talk about it a little bit. Or like if I'm doing a sardine fast, they think that's insane. They're like, "What? Just sardines?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's all I'm eating for a few days." Mind blown. My mom actually is carnivore now. Um, so that's good. My dad and my stepmom, they maybe are starting to make the transition a little bit. They're asking more questions, but they've always been
hmm
pretty chill. There's the thing about that has been easy for me is my family has always been big meat eaters. Like when I was a kid growing up, I loved the fat on a steak. Like if anyone cut it off their steak, I would eat it. So I never had an issue with that for myself or with my family. My dad always cooked a pound of bacon every Sunday. And I looked forward to it every time. I'm like, I want a whole pound myself, you know. So that hasn't been too hard. I don't have a traditional job. My job is YouTube. So I don't have an office that I have to go to or, break room or anything. So
Right.
that's lucky. And, for me, we don't keep that any kind of bad stuff around the house because I am not a moderator. I am an
Ah,
abstainer. So
abstainer, yeah.
I have zero self-control. And I know that about myself. And I have gone off the rails, a few times on this 2.5, well, not 2.5, 2.25 year, carnivore thing. And I suffer every time. So I don't keep it around. But as far as like random people, I don't really talk about carnivore unless I'm asked. I don't want to be like
Mhm.
pushy or weird. But sometimes if I'm wearing like one of my carnivore t-shirts or something, I'll have somebody make a comment or like ask a question and then I'll say something. And it's surprising. Like nowadays, I feel like a lot more people are aware of what the carnivore diet is. Whereas like 2 years ago it was totally different,
Yeah,
even
I
just 2 years
totally
ago.
agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Totally.
it's been it's been interesting. Um, for social situations, for me, if I know I'm going to be somewhere where there's not going to be a lot of carnivore options, I just eat before I go. And I make sure I'm
Same.
really full.
Yep, same.
And yeah, so then I don't have the temptations. But with a lot of practice, that's not really difficult for me anymore.
Mhm. Talk to me about your sardine fast. How long
Yeah.
did you do that? Because I've thought about doing one. I love sardines. I just get the kind of the basic ones at Costco. I find them really, really good, but I have not jumped into a sardine fast per se.
Yeah.
How long did you
Yeah.
do it, and what did you find out?
So I've done lots of different lengths of sardine fast. I've done 3, 4, 7, 10, and 14 day. And so many things, so many benefits to it. So it mimics the effects of a water fast. So if somebody has a hard time just doing a water fast, I think a sardine fast is a really good intro. You're getting a ton of omega 3s from the sardines. It really helps to balance out your omega 6 to omega 3 ratio. So if you're eating a lot of like red meat or things like that, you can have, especially if it's conventionally raised meat, you can have a little bit higher omega 6s and you can very quickly balance those out by eating some sardines. I've done a bunch of experiments on my YouTube channel where I do blood work, DEXA scans, different things like that. My most recent sardine fast was a 14-day, and I did an arsenic test afterwards
Okay.
because I've had a few comments like, "Oh, I saw Joe Rogan. He talked about how like I ate 6 cans of sardines a day, and then my arsenic, blah." And so I stopped eating them, and I'm like, "Well, that doesn't sound right." So I researched it and added that test in, and that's actually doesn't happen. My arsenic was fine. Same with mercury. Your mercury does not go up when you're eating a lot of sardines. So yeah, you lose a lot of fat. Your ketones go way up. Your glucose levels normalize and they stay very low, 70s, 80s. Um, I lost a lot of fat, so I did a DEXA scan before and after to see the body composition changes because that's really the only reliable, cheap way you can measure body composition changes.
Mhm.
Those scales that are out there are very inaccurate, very, very inaccurate. There is some new technology coming out that's like a body scan with your phone. That's going to be very interesting, but DEXA is probably the best. And I think I lost like I don't know, 6 pounds, 6.5 pounds of fat, pure
In
fat.
14 days?
That was from the 10-day sardine
Wow,
fast. Yeah,
that's impressive.
I know.
Especially
So,
considering you're already carnivore
yeah.
and you had lost a bunch of weight already, but to go
Hmm.
6.5 pounds in 10 days while eating still,
Yeah.
that's some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it is. I mean, when you're eating, that's why I think it's better than a water fast, at least for me. You are eating a little bit, you're eating a lot of protein, so it's protein sparing modified fast, basically. You're eating enough protein so that you're sparing your lean mass,
Mhm.
which I illustrated with the DEXA scan. I really didn't lose any lean mass. It was fat for the most part. So yeah, that was really interesting. I actually just finished a 2-day sardine fast, and then I have my birthday tomorrow, so we're gonna have a steak dinner. I think I'm gonna go back on another one on Monday, Monday through Friday of next week. I like to do them as a reset, and getting the fish in, getting some seafood in. The effects last quite a while. I just did another experiment where I did my 14-day sardine fast. And then I didn't eat any sardines for a month and I retested my omegas. And then I did it at the 6 week mark too, because I wanted to see how long the positive effects of eating all those
Mhm.
sardines lasted. So I'm still awaiting the second test. So that's going to be really interesting. But surprisingly, the effects lasts a long time. So you really don't need to eat a ton of fish to really see the benefits. I think maybe 1 or 2 cans of sardines per week will get you the omega-3s that you need to balance everything out. It's pretty remarkable how much nutrition and good stuff is in a can
Mhm.
of sardines.
So when you were doing the fast, how many cans did you eat a day?
Yeah, so anywhere between 2 to 7, typically 4 to 5.
Okay, so like two a meal or two and a half, three a meal,
Yeah, so
kind
the
of.
key is just eat sardines until you're not hungry anymore, and then don't eat again until you're hungry. And I think it's Dr. Boz or someone like that is like when you're sardine hungry, you're truly hungry. Because
Mhm.
most people don't really like sardines.
Yeah,
I can
and she's done
tolerate
those.
them.
She's done those. I've seen her videos of her doing the
Yeah.
sardine fast. So, all right, you
Yeah.
piqued my interest. I'm gonna have to do that. Um, and then what are your favorite foods on carnivore? Because everybody has their own, but what are yours?
Yeah, I'm so boring. Ribeye steaks all day, every day. I love eggs. I cook them over medium in butter, like a ton of butter, like 3 tablespoons, kind of swimming in it. So good. Bacon. I could eat a pound of bacon every single day. And let's see, tuna sashimi from a good sushi restaurant, big, thick pieces of tuna
Mhm.
sashimi that are really cold. I love those. That's probably my go-tos. Oh, and then chicken wings. I love chicken wings. I actually ate them like 4 times last week. I
Wow.
shouldn't
See, and
admit
that's
that.
it's interesting because I realized that I don't like chicken.
Really?
I liked breaded chicken sandwiches and I love barbecue sauce, but I don't really love chicken and I don't crave chicken. And I probably haven't had chicken in over a year because I just don't, I'm not having the
Yeah.
really good barbecue sauce and I'm not having a crispy, spicy chicken sandwich. So I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that,
Right.
but
On my channel, I actually recreated the Popeyes spicy chicken sandwich, fully carnivore.
I'm going to have to watch that.
It was so good. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That one was fun. I don't really crave chicken either. If it's not chicken, usually I eat them once a month, but we picked some up from Costco and they were just around, so I'm like, screw it. I'm just gonna eat chicken wings every night.
Yeah, and again, nothing wrong. I'm just curious to see, but ribeye would be your go-to, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's my go-to steak. If I'm eating a steak, it's typically a ribeye. We'll get the whole ribeye from Costco and cut them ourselves because we like to have, some normal 1.5 inch, 2 inch, 2 inches kind of big, 1.5 inch thick steaks, and then
Mhm.
we will cut a couple of 2 inch ones for like if we're really hungry. But yeah, that seems to be the best for us, and we get them for anywhere between 11.99 to 14.99 a pound when you do the whole ribeye, and they're not blade tenderized, and then you can, cut off the extra fat to render tallow, and it just works really well for us.
Right.
We actually brought a ton. We're in Florida right now. We're from Chicago, but we're in Florida visiting family, and we brought a ton of frozen steaks down here because we cannot find really cheap ribeyes here. It's like $22 for, I don't know, a 1 pound steak. No way.
Uh-uh.
Not
No, a
spending
little
that.
different than up here in the Midwest.
Yeah, so we just brought it down with us. I'm not spending extra. We'll just freeze it.
Have you have you tried prime rib in the sous vide?
I have not like cooking it, no, but that
Yeah.
sounds
Oh,
fantastic.
it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So
That's the
that
one kitchen tool we don't have that my husband really wants. He loves to cook. So we'll have to try
sous
that.
vide is a game changer for you.
Yeah. So how do you prepare it?
You you put whatever seasoning you want on it. You put it in a bag. You can either seal it or just put it in a Ziploc bag, and then you put it in the water. And I do mine for like 24 hours at 131 degrees. I actually have a video on my channel about that. And then you just throw it on the grill and sear it. Takes about 6 minutes to reverse sear it, but it can be you know, a thick prime rib and it's cooked rare, but it's cooked and it falls apart tender.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it is really, I would encourage you to check that out. You'd be surprised how awesome it is.
Yeah, that sounds great. And it sounds easy. Stick it in the
It's
water
super,
for 24 hours and then sear
yeah.
it. It's
Especially if you know,
easiest
like
ever.
you have a big day and you're gone or whatever, you just throw it in the day before and you come home, it's kind of like a crock pot, right?
Yeah,
And it's 6 minutes, 8 minutes after that, and you're done.
that's awesome.
Super,
Yeah, I will
yeah,
definitely have to
super
try
simple.
that. Yeah, we
Um,
do prime rib in the oven
okay.
with a like an herb butter mix on it, and we put our meters in and we pull it at specific temperatures and things like that. Yeah, we love prime rib. It's so good.
I agree. So you've been doing this 2.25 years. So what are your biggest health surprises for you that that came out of left field? You weren't expecting that. You had no idea that was even an issue. And then you go, holy crap, what the heck is that?
Yeah, yeah. So a few things. Dental, oral health. I had bleeding gums occasionally, and I used breath mints often. And I noticed pretty quickly that my gums no longer bleed, and don't ever have to use breath mints anymore. It's pretty amazing. Um, Also, like dentist appointments, they're always like, "Oh, everything's so good. You don't have any cavities. There's barely any tartar." I'm like, well, that's because all I eat is meat. I'm not really eating any sugar. That was a big one. Another big one was kind of like gastrointestinal stuff. I did not expect that I would not have gas anymore because I was eating so many vegetables. I just assumed that that was just par for course. But after about a month and a half, 2 months on carnivore, I mean, if I'm just eating BBB&E like I normally do, no gas, none whatsoever. And it's so funny because some of the most common comments that I get on my YouTube channel is like, oh man, she must stink to be around, or like bowel movement related stuff, and just like,
Mhm.
crazy stuff that people post or comment. And I'm like, actually, no. Common misconception. It's the vegetarians and vegans that are stinky, not the
Yeah.
carnivores. So that was really interesting. I discovered that I don't tolerate dairy very well through a lot of experimentation, which is sad because I love it. But some people can include dairy in their versions of carnivore. I unfortunately am not one of those. I only eat dairy once or twice a month just because I love it. But I do suffer a little bit the next day. We talked about the mental health stuff. That was not something that I expected. Um, I had already been doing pretty well, gone through a lot of therapy and, working on, you know, all the things. But I still did have to take some emergency anxiety medication from time to time. And having, 1-year-olds when we started is very stressful,
Mhm.
not getting a lot of sleep. But yeah, that improved pretty quickly, pretty quickly. And that, I mean, I haven't had to take any medication, emergency anxiety medication, almost the entire time I've been carnivore. I would also say sleep improvements, since we're talking about that. I definitely, in the beginning, with the keto flu, my sleep was terrible. I had, restless legs and things like that. But after the first 4 weeks, that really evened out. And my sleep is very, very deep. And I would say a lot more restorative than it used to be. I used to have a really hard time falling asleep and staying asleep. I was kind of a night owl in my younger years. But not anymore. I can go, if I had my way, I would go to bed at 8:30 p.m. every night and then wake up like at 5:30 or 6:30 whenever my body naturally
Mhm.
wants to wake up. But those are probably the biggest things. I also like blood work wise. I assumed I would have some improvements in my metabolic health, but my metabolic health wasn't bad. I didn't have pre-diabetes. I didn't have any kind of serious chronic disease or anything when I started. I really started for weight loss. But then I saw just drastic improvements in my blood markers. And that's been really interesting to see too. There was obviously some room for improvement that I didn't realize.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear all those things happen, and it's kind of a cool thing on carnivore because you don't know you had this issue. you just assumed it was because I was growing older or whatever, an injury from before or whatever. And then you go, hey, wait a minute, this is gone or that's gone. And you hear it all over the place. And it doesn't matter who you seem to talk to that's done carnivore for any length of time. They seem to pretty much heal up things that they didn't even realize were an issue, which I just think is a really cool benefit or a side benefit of that.
Yeah, for
Now,
sure.
with that said, you got a chance to go speak at the COSI conference down in Vegas with Dave Feldman and Dr. Westman and a lot of the other doctors that are down there. I guess just quickly, what was your speech about, and what were your big takeaways from the conference?
Yeah, so the Collaborative Science Conference was February 8th and 9th of this year. It was the second annual, and it is kind of a conference, a fundraiser disguised as a conference, is how Dave likes to call it. This conference raises money for the second lean mass hyperresponder study, which is called the Triad study, that is studying, the effects of elevated LDL cholesterol levels over time when all other biomarkers are really good in a group of people that are coined lean mass hyperresponders. Yes, same, me too. So really cool conference. I was there last year at just attending, and it was so good. And so this year, Dave actually asked me to put together a speech for it. So I put together an experiment that we've been doing with my husband, because while we both started carnivore around the same time, he didn't lose any weight in the first 18 months, and I lost almost 50 pounds. So what was different?
Yeah,
He
that's
had lost.
interesting.
It is, it really is, because normally it's like the other way around, like the woman has a hard time losing weight. Well, we've discovered that he has some really stubborn insulin resistance, that was not responding to just carnivore. He had maintained that 130-pound weight loss from before we met, but
Mhm.
he hadn't really lost anything else. And so for him, we kind of figured out that we needed to include some really aggressive fasting in addition to carnivore to get the insulin resistance under control, because he has had 9 pounds of visceral fat. His fasting insulin was in the teens. His glucose was between 100 and 130, and his blood pressure was starting to go up, but he wasn't eating any carbs. We were like, what the hell is going on? So, yeah, we started an experiment on him in August of last year, and we've now taken him from 270 pounds to 220. And we've taken his visceral fat from 9 pounds to almost under 5. And his blood work is, we're seeing a lot of improvements. There's going to be like a switch flip moment, I
Mhm.
think, when we get to a certain level of visceral fat where his body will start responding to an ultra low carb diet the way it's supposed to. But when he was morbidly obese for a long time, like 300 to 400 pounds. So I think the damage that he did to his metabolic health, his system, he needed a little bit more. So that's basically
Mhm.
what we talked about. I shared the data from the experiment, talked about, the protocol itself and all of that jazz. It was really fun. I enjoy public speaking. I have a background in it just with working at as a youth director. I did a lot of public speaking for that. But yeah, it was also nerve-wracking. Dr. Ken Berry's like 4 rows from the front. I'm like, ah. But it was cool. It was so fun. I learned a lot. So the cool thing about COSI is it's a mix of scientists, doctors, and researchers, along with citizen scientists. I spoke as a citizen scientist. So it's a really good mix, because Dave really likes to talk about how science, it isn't just, for the people that are, the higher ups or whatever you want to say, the science, the researchers, the doctors, all
Mhm.
that. Science is for everybody. It's a process. It's not something that can just be, you know, um, taken in by a small group of people. We can all do it. So I think that's a really cool aspect of that conference. And yeah, it was really fun. I met a lot of really cool people and connected with a bunch of people out there. And yeah, I recommend anybody that can, if he has this conference again next year, you need to go. It's so good. And
Yeah.
it's a fundraiser. So like tickets are much cheaper than a normal conference would be. The lowest price ticket was $25 for the entire weekend,
Wow.
because it's
Yeah,
a
that's not
donation.
bad.
But then the price goes up, you can also donate up to $1,000 a ticket and you get different benefits at the different tiers, and it's all a
Hmm.
donation. So that's another cool aspect of that conference.
Awesome. Well, hopefully next year I can get there. I was hoping to get there this year, and then I ended up with my third round of the vid.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, right over Super Bowl weekend. So anyway, it is what it is. So I wouldn't
That's
have
what
been
it
able to
is.
go anyway.
Yeah.
So you're also a new author. So what inspired you to write a book called Complete Carnivore?
That's a funny story because I wasn't going to write a book. The publisher actually got a hold of me. I got this random email in June of last year, said, "Hey, have you ever considered writing a cookbook?" And it was very funny because 2 weeks before that, I had been talking to my husband and saying, like, "Oh my God, I don't ever want to write a cookbook. That seems like a nightmare." I know, because I had just talked to Courtney Luna. We've become friends, and she was finishing up her cookbook, and it's a lot of work. So then I got this email. I'm like, "Oh my God." So I emailed them back because I looked up the publishing company, and it's a big name in the health and wellness space. And I had several of their books on my shelf. Like they published Sean Baker's book, Dr. Ken Berry's book. So I was like, I'm going to send an email back. And I said, well, have never considered writing a cookbook, but I would like to write a complete in-depth guide to the carnivore diet, maybe along with some recipes in that book. So they were like, yeah. And so, yeah, signed the book deal in July and wrote it. Let's see, I think I finished the final manuscript, the first manuscript, on December 12th. So it's a complete in-depth guide to the carnivore diet. Has like a complete guide of how to get started. Just every question you could ever think of is answered in this book. I have a whole troubleshooting section, a whole chapter on monitoring your progress. So like DEXA scans, blood work, what ranges you should look for, where you can get CGMs and all this different stuff. A myths chapter, so just so many different things because I wanted it to be kind of like an encyclopedia for the carnivore diet that
Mhm.
any carnivore at any stage in their journey could use. So that's the first half of the book. The second half of the book is 80 carnivore recipes. So it's a lot.
Wow, that
Yeah.
is, and you did that in like 5 months?
Yeah, because I'm a
That's
crazy
impressive.
person.
That's impressive.
My husband hated me. It was bad. But I wanted to get it done so that we could move on. Because I was also doing the YouTube channel at the same time. So it's like I basically had two full-time jobs for 5 months. But that's done. Now we're in the editing process. So the book is going to be released on September 16th. It originally was in April, but we just wouldn't have had enough time to give it the time it deserves for the editing process. So we
Hmm.
decided to release it in fall, which I'm very happy about because I still have a lot on my plate with everything else. So I'm like, yes, I can take a little time now. But yeah, it's been fun. I really can't wait to hold it in my hands. I always wanted to write a book. I'm a voracious reader. I read constantly. And I knew I'd always write a book of some kind. I just didn't know that it would be this to start. But I'm very, very happy with how it turned out. So
Well, that's really, really awesome. I can't wait to find it. And where can someone like, I've heard you say that you can pre-order, right?
yeah.
How does
Yeah.
somebody do
So
that?
it's available for pre-order now. I will give you the links. It's Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, Target, Blackwell's for the international viewers that can't get it on Amazon. Yeah, so the pre-order is really important for a new author, really any author. The more pre-orders that you get, the more likely it is that the brick and mortar bookstores will put it on the bookshelf on release day instead of just releasing it online. So that's a
Got it.
pretty big deal. We want to get the healing power of the carnivore diet out to as many people as humanly possible because it's profound. And I think it can really, really help a lot of people. So that's kind of a big goal of mine is to, get as many pre-orders as possible. Um, Amazon and Barnes and Noble have really good pre-order deals where at the day you order it up until the day it's released, you will get charged the lowest price it ever is in that window. So if there's like a flash sale on Amazon and it goes down to like 20 bucks, but you've already pre-ordered it, you pay 20 bucks on release day. And then
Okay.
typically it like goes out on release day too, so you have it in your hands the day it's released. So those are pretty good pre-order benefits as well. So yeah, I'll send those links over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'll make sure those are in the notes below. So I want to say I looked at your YouTube channel, God, I want to say like 6 months ago, and I've watched more videos than that, but I want to say like your channel has like exploded, if I'm not mistaken, in subscriptions and viewers. I mean, you were at over 12 million views. I don't know if you
Yeah.
know that, but how how exciting is that? And is that what you were shooting for?
You know, no, that was not what I was shooting for. I mean, when I started this channel, it's actually my third YouTube channel. This was a twin mom lifestyle channel that I started when I was pregnant with the boys. And then I did two videos, a 30-day update and a 90-day update, and released them simultaneously on my channel. Because I knew carnivore videos were kind of popular. I had
Mhm.
done the experiments, with the glucose and all the kind of stuff, and I wanted to share my results. And man, those videos exploded. I had like 1,600 subscribers when I released those, and I grew by like 8,000 subscribers in a week. That summer, 2023, yeah, I had a few videos that really exploded. And then it kind of petered off a little bit, and then I've had a few that continued to kind of pop off from time to time. But yeah, I never thought I have 131,000 subscribers now. I never thought it would ever get to this level. But yeah, you do YouTube. It's fickle and difficult, and it's almost like you're chasing the algorithm. So
Um,
I try not to do that anymore. I really try to follow my own interests. And I mean that also kind of like intersect with what my audience enjoys. And I really just try to pay it forward as much as possible. And if I get a lot of the same question from people in the comment
mhm.
section, I make a video about it. That's kind of what's guided me thus far. I don't really watch a ton of other carnivore creators. I'll watch a little bit, but I don't want to get stuck in the trap of like just making like copying videos, you
Mhm.
know? I
Yeah,
really
make
try
them
to take
original
it.
to you. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So I really try to kind of just go down my own rabbit holes and just see where it leads, you know. But yeah, it's been interesting. You hit 100,000 subscribers and you're like you've been waiting for that. You're like, oh my God, I'm gonna get the plaque and all the stuff. And it's just like any other, you're still the same person. Yeah, I'm still the
Right.
same Jenny I was, 2 years ago. Of course, I've changed and evolved and grown as a person as much as I can. But yeah, it's weird and surreal getting recognized places. Like I haven't gotten to the point yet where I'm being recognized like at Walmart or anything like that. But if
Mhm.
I go to these conferences, with like-minded people, yeah, yeah, I
Right.
definitely get recognized there. So that's been interesting
Yeah.
for sure.
So I went down the rabbit hole and I have an actual list that I have on one of the end of my videos of all the doctors that I kind of watch or recommend. Um, what would be like Jenny's top five doctors to watch that you like click with or that have really good content?
Yeah. So, doctor wise, I would say obviously Dr. Ken Berry. I like Sean Baker's stuff. I really like Dr. Nadir Ali. He
Hmm?
has some really, really good content that's really high level related to cardiovascular disease
Yep.
and things like that. I love him. I'm actually going to have him on my show. I think I'm going to release that one in May. Let's see here. Dave is not a doctor, Dave Feldman, but I love his content and
Me
his
too.
experiments and the cholesterol research. He also is a really good connector. Like he has colleagues in so many different spaces that he can like connect different doctors and different viewpoints and all that kind of stuff. I really love his content. Um, that's a good question. I'm kind of drawing a blank. I love Dr. Ovadia. I just interviewed him for my channel, and he's really great because he's very down to earth and very easy to understand for somebody that's coming into carnivore or keto space that has like no idea about any of it. His book is very easy to understand for every person, so I really love his content as well. Oh, and Dr. Saiwas, he's great. He presents a lot at the symposiums for metabolic health, and I always love his presentations because they're really in depth. He does a lot of testing, a lot of blood work and stuff. I learned a lot about blood work from him. I also like his kind of like no nonsense way of delivering things. You know, he doesn't sugarcoat it, and I like
Mhm.
that too.
Got it. Um, and then a couple of things and we'll wrap it up for tonight. What advice would you give someone who's watching this video and maybe thinking about carnivore and they've kind of heard about it, and then they're watching you and I, and we're both 2 years in. What would your advice to them be?
It's a really great question. So I think give it 30 days. You're not going to know if it's going to work for you until you try it. So I think just getting into it, giving it a shot. I think trying to just pick a few creators or content creators on YouTube to watch. If you are watching all of them, you're going to get a lot of conflicting advice, and that can be very confusing in the beginning. So I would say if you're coming to carnivore because you're watching some YouTube videos, just pick one, two, three different people that you are going to get the majority of your advice from for the first month or so, because it can get really confusing out there. And then just keep it simple. I think most people can start with all meat, all seafood, eggs, and butter. I think that's most important. And electrolytes. Electrolytes are so important in the beginning. If I didn't have electrolytes when I was doing carnivore, I would have suffered even more than I did. It was bad. That's not a joke. So definitely have some good, like unflavored electrolytes on hand. And then the other thing is, give it time and you need to practice a bit of patience. You didn't get to where you are today in a month, you know,
Right.
decades and decades and decades of living the way that you lived before is not going to heal overnight. This needs to be a lifestyle shift, not just a diet. But give it 30 days to see if it agrees with you. I don't think carnivore is for everybody. I do think real whole food with a meat-heavy diet is for most people. But you may find that keto is better for you. The only way to know though is to experiment with it. So yeah,
Right.
those would be my biggest advice. And then you can also head over to my YouTube channel. I have a playlist called Beginner Carnivore Videos. It's like 42 videos that will answer literally every question that you have about carnivore. I built those videos specifically for the new carnivore to answer all the questions that I get on YouTube and also all the questions that I had in the beginning that I couldn't find good answers to. So I built that playlist specifically for, this hypothetical person. So that's another one too.
Awesome. And then besides YouTube, are there any other social media channels that people can find you?
Yeah, I do Instagram. That's Mama Mitich. And I do TikTok. That's real Jenny Mitich. That's it. Just TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. I'm sure there's others, but I'm not, a hip young person. So I really don't do a lot of social media. Like I'm not on social media a lot just because I'm too busy. I have too much stuff going on. But I am trying to focus a little bit more on the short form content. I prefer long form, but all the eyes are on the shorts, so I need to
Yeah,
do
they
that
seem to get
more.
more clicks through or get people at least interested in your channel because maybe they haven't seen you before or something like that.
Right. And it's
Yeah, that's
easier
one
to
thing I
do.
need to do better.
Yeah,
But
I've been working on that for the past year. I just don't find as much joy in creating short form content. So I need to find
Mhm.
that, you know.
Yeah. Well, Jenny, I appreciate your time this evening and coming on the KM Carnivore channel. I look forward to talking with you down the road. I wish you nice warm weather down there in Florida on your vacation. And if not, if there's anything else you'd like to say, quick, otherwise we'll wrap it up.
I think we're good. I think we covered it.
Awesome. All right. Awesome. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I appreciate it.